Hello there, I'm Rob Hammond. This is part 3 on a video I'm doing about Donald Trump and other serious interrelated topics. And let's continue on. Yeah, we're talking about the German people and what's going on in Germany with the extremist attacks here. Who now wears the cat's pajamas in Germany? Because it's certainly not the German men, that's for sure. And the police, no, there was little resistance by the police, as I'm aware of. They didn't seem to be effective. And last but not least, the women. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here. Because there was apparently little or no resistance by the German men. And this is something very important. So when I hear people saying that we need to welcome all ethnic groups and beliefs, yes, only those who welcome values in diversity and freedom and freedom of expression. But those who don't, and you still want to welcome them in, well, those very people, by doing that, are pushing for their own cultural and even genetic demise. Because I think it was New Year's Eve, those Arab Muslim men in Germany were basically testing the grounds to see where they stand. They were seeing, they attacked, molested and raped those women out in public on the street to see if there was any resistance met by the men and met by the police, and there was virtually none. So basically, I would say they pretty much own that turf now, you know. And this does connect into what I was talking about in previous videos about the traditional nuclear family, especially for Western people. If there was traditional families more, because I haven't been to Germany, but I've heard the divorce rates and all of that. It's the same shenanigans that's happened over here. There was a story about in a paper I read about a German guy that was so fed up when his wife demanded half of everything of his house and that he actually chainsawed the sofa in half, the bike, and even chainsawed the car straight in half because he was so furious, and said, there's your half. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's happening everywhere by the looks of things, and if we had more traditional families, there would have been a resistance met by these attacks by these Arab men. But because of the destruction of the family unit, it was weakened. So because that was basically a testing ground. They were testing to see if there's any challenge, and it wasn't met, because this is how men traditionally conduct warfare. when you look at it, they if they want to conquer a new land and the people on it, first. Traditionally, they're met with the resistance by the indigenous men of the land, and in Germany's case, they weren't met with any. And if they managed to kill and defeat the resistance, then the rest of the men, the indigenous men that survived, would be used either probably as slaves or at best soldiers under their rule, troops on the ground. And the women would be owned. It would become probably for them to be raped and taken as partners on the side for as well as these conquerors having their own wives. Although they may have been forced to marry, probably wouldn't have much choice, or even be killed. As for the children, they may have been killed if they weren't, if they weren't favoured upon. And basically, they would have been assimilated into that culture. This is just warfare. This is what men have done in the past. It's very brutal, and so any survivors would have been converted into the belief system of their conquerors, and their history would have been whitewashed, ideally. So think about that. because you can see it happening now on so many levels. Because the global elite like Tony Blair, Hillary Clinton, the Bushes, the Camerons, I believe they want to, looking by the evidence, destroy Western civilization as we know it, and so that they can lay their new plan afterwards. And I mentioned before probably, but they like to achieve this by something called order out of chaos. This is how they work, to create as much chaos as possible, which has been an ongoing plan for a long time. They've been doing it in other countries in the Middle East as well, and then finally to offer a solution. But in order for that to happen, they have to have a certain amount of our cooperation for it to work, and our consent as well. Like us having no problem with voting in the EU, which we didn't, you see. We chose, here in the UK, where I'm from, we chose Brexit. That really can be seen as a spanner in the New World Order works, something to set them back. And not voting for Hillary Clinton as well. She was the lesser of evil, shall we say. Voting for Trump, that was another step. I think the American people, the bulk of them had basically had enough. They started to go back to old value system of what's wrong with a president, a leader, putting his own country first, putting his own tribe first, instead of being obsessed with globalisation and just, there's nothing wrong with that. There has to be a limit, has to be a line drawn in the sand, because I'm not against mixing. I'm not against diversity, but there has to be a limit. You don't want to pour in the human stock over into another country and almost neglect the people that are already there in the process. That's not fair. And another thing, something's kind of changed about me. I used to think that we, the common people, had bugger all power when it came to changing the world through politics, through the voting system. I mean, I spoke in last video at some point about left wing and right wing, but there's only it's two sides of the eagle, or there's two heads on the same coin. Left, right, they're all the same. There's a one agenda running, and that may be true to a certain extent, but what I saw with Donald Trump is very interesting, and it's made me possibly come to realise that we do have the power to change through the vote. Because as I said, I think a certain amount of consent is needed for this to happen, for the global elite to get their wicked way. There's a certain amount of cooperation, and I think they were hoping we were fast asleep, and that we'd been brainwashed enough to not see ourselves as a country, as a tribe, as a people, but they were wrong, and I think it's a very positive move here, so we have the right to be quite hopeful about this. Because people like Tony Blair, for example, they test the grounds of the people as well. They test to see if basically the latch is still open or left unlocked, shall we say. And if it is, it's game on. It's time for them to make the next move. But if the people still have any self-preservation instinct left, we lock it and close the door, and we lock it at the last minute when the votes are just coming into a close. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what happened, I think, with Brexit, and that's what happened with Donald Trump. There's been a setback in the global elite's plans for world domination here. So this is a positive thing for us. If this is all genuine, if Donald Trump is genuine, then it's been set back. because it seems the German people were too nice, basically, and it seems Western Europeans are being too nice. We think that every single culture has our best interest at heart, but it doesn't. And I think that they had the guilt trip put on them about the Second World War and all that, Hitler and the Nazis and all that shenanigans. I think they had the guilt trip put on them so that they could basically allow these Arab Muslims, these haters of the West, to come in and take over. I think that's what's happened, and they allowed themselves to get too soft, and they're paying a price now, unfortunately. And I hope things can be improved on that. Because it works like chess in a way, all of this. And talk to you on part 4 about that.